looking at you kids.
Me too.
I wish I knew how to quit eating
Bond.
this seems so
James Bond.
There's no place like home.
I'm gonna make him an offer again with you.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Gone with the Wind. This is going to be our announcement of the nominations for the Gone with the Wind Awards. It's one of those ones that it got really interesting in this one because a lot of the categories got up. There were some categories which were really tight and we have about 7 or 8 nominations, and some have 5 and all that. But we've got Dan here. Dan, how's it going?
Going good. I'm just looking to see what the voters voted for. Hopefully, we don't get any crazy nominations here, and we'll see if Lewis's crazy ballot is going to count for any of our votes.
We've got also got Lewis here. Lewis, how's it going?
I think my ballot's fine. I think my ballot would make it even better Oscar lineup than the Oscars gave us, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm doing pretty good for the most part. It's going to be real interesting to see how these played out. It's always nice to see what consensus some folks form, and seeing how many of your personal favorites get mentioned when you know other people are voting. And those who know, but I'm just going to say hashtag we want Cody. And those who know.
That's dumb. I want The Rock, Roman. Forget about that.
Hell no, man. I want Cody.
Anyway, we can talk about wrestling later on. But yeah, we're going to get straight into this. For the most part, what I might actually do for some is I'll give a couple of movies that were just outside of it before I bring up the nominations. So the first category we're going to go to is visual effects. Just missing out on getting into that nomination bunch. We had Society of the Snow just knocking out there, and then Transformers was Beast was down there as well. But our nominations for best visual effects, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Godzilla -1, Oppenheimer, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, The Creator, Poor Things, and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for visual effects?
Well, we got Lewis's favorite film in there. He would have rioted if it wasn't in there. But otherwise than that, that's pretty good. I mean, what do you got? 6 nominees in this category? Not bad. That's pretty much on par for what you would expect. Good job, voters.
And Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for visual effects?
Yeah, great job. I like these for the most part. I think like all but one of these are my personal ballot even. So I'm very happy to see the ones that they chose. And I think probably looks better than the Oscar one that we got, considering how wild that race has gone.
But moving on to stunt ensemble, just outside of the nominations, we had Blue Beetle pop up. The Creator popped up a little bit for stunt ensemble and Ferrari. But our nominations for stunt ensemble, we have got John Wick Chapter 4, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, Guardians Volume 3, Creed 3, Fast X, The Iron Claw, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for stunt ensemble?
As much as I love Iron Claw, I know Dan wasn't as hot on it as I was. I find it a little weird when I see it pop up in stunt ensemble. I guess people just get caught up in the wrestling aspect of it. But for the most part, these seem to be pretty aligned with what I would guess one of these looks like. I would like to see Polite Society got it in here, but I know that was probably going to be only a long shot. But I'm happy to see John Wick and Mission Impossible get in, because to me, those were easily the best stunts of the year.
Yeah, I realize I don't say anything about visual effects, but very quickly for me on visual effects, like there was nothing too surprising for me. I was going to see Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves get in there, and yeah, some the Onclaw was one that I didn't think of, but I mean, it's one of those ones like it's especially when it comes with Creed 3 as well. It's a very similar kind of thing. Like they're still like, even though it's wrestling, it's still stunt per se. So I mean, so I was good to see it get in there, but yeah, and just very quickly, this is one of those ones like only two people, like I got 13 ballots in total. Only two people did not have John Wick 4 on that thing for stunt ensemble. I think John Wick Chapter 4 and Mission Impossible were the two that got a lot of the votes. So, but Dan, what are your thoughts about the stunt ensemble nominations?
Yeah, I'm right with Lewis. But the thing is, wrestling is a lot of athletic work, and probably they have to make it look realistic. You know, the wrestling look realistic, and the boxing has to look so they probably had some stunt work in the boxing and the wrestling. So I could see why those would pop up here, but at least they got John Wick and Dead Reckoning. That's the main thing.
Moving on to the next category, which is Best Original Song. And one thing I will say before I get into some of these is there was a point in time where it was looking like this was going to be a lot of nominations because there's a whole bunch of movies tied on 2 votes at one thing. There's a lot, just where everyone had almost different songs on their ballots they put in there. But some of the ones that just missed out for Best Original Song, we had Camp Isn't Home from Better Camp. You've Never Had Chocolate Like This from Wonka, and Sweet Pepper also from Wonka, just outside. Oscar nominated, Road to Freedom just missed out too, but nominated for Best Original Song. We have got I'm Just Ken from Barbie, Peaches from Super Mario Brothers, What Was I Made For from Barbie, Am I Dreaming from Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, That's Not from Barbie, Can't Catch Me Now from Hunger Games, Dallas Song to Snakes, and Dear Aliens from Ashwood City, or Remove the Benefit. I think there was, no, that wasn't. But yeah, for me, it's like it's one of those ones. Like I'm glad that the Alien made it in, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see if the Barbie song is pull it out, or it's going to go split the votes bit when we get voting up. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nomination for Best Original Song?
Well, I like to see Peaches get in there, you know, and Dear Alien's good. I was, I like to see some variety. I don't want to see a bunch of Barbie songs, even though we did get a couple Barbie songs in here. We got some variety. I'm surprised that Lenny Kravitz song didn't translate to more people.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about Best Original Song?
Yeah, this is easily the category that I've been the most like on another world than everybody else on. Like I just like all my favorite songs are like not showing up anywhere. I think Peaches was the only one that I put in here that made it through. Song has just been so. It's basically been like Barbie versus everybody else, and I think you see that in these nominations, like you've seen it everywhere else.
Yeah, what happened? There's no translation for High Life. I don't understand that. I think it's such a great song and a great movie.
Yeah.
With a guy that has a history of writing good songs for movies, John Carney. But
yeah,
I wonder if it's the people just haven't seen the movie because it kind of just got dropped on Apple TV for the most part, and there wasn't really much, done for marketing it.
A lot of people saw it at Sundance last year, though.
I remember that.
Go ahead.
But moving on to Best Original Score.
Wait, Malcolm, don't you have thoughts on the songs?
He talked about it, but he didn't say much.
Well, I started up there, but it's one of those ones like it played out the kind of how I thought it was going to be, because like I'm Just Ken and Peaches. I knew was really loved in this community anyway, and I believe it's one of those ones like I'm just happy that Dear Alien from Ashwood City made it in, because I really like that song. Wish Ashwood City got more love than it did. At least at the Oscars, it's without spoiling, it's actually going to come up a few more times here, but
didn't get any love at the Oscars, right, Malcolm? No nominations at all.
Nothing at all. No. But
Terrible.
Moving on to But moving on to Best Original Score, and just outside of the nominations, now I'm going to butcher this name, but Naoki Sato from Godzilla Minus One was just outside with three nominations. And Thomas Newman for Elemental was just outside as well. But our nominations for Best Original Score, we've got Daniel Pemberton for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Ludwig Göransson for Oppenheimer, Erskine Fendrix for Poor Things, Bobby Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Mark Orton from The Holdovers. I don't think he's any relation to Randy Orton, but but Dan, what are your thoughts about the Best Original Score nominations?
I'll tell you what, this is pretty damn good if you ask me. I mean, someone might say a score from like one of the foreign films or something like that, but other than that, I mean, I don't think this is that bad. I mean, if you replace like maybe The Holdovers with one of the foreign films scores, it would be pretty good. I mean, Holdovers ain't a bad score though, so this is a good lineup.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about the score nominations?
I mean, with the exception of The Holdovers, which is like that's an interesting choice, which tells me how much the folks who voted on this like that movie. The scores lineup here looks like pretty much a lot of the score lineup that you've seen elsewhere. I do find it interesting that Godzilla Minus One almost got in there because we in Puerto Rico, I want to say, also nominated for best score. So I think there was definitely some love for that film score. But for the most part, it looks like your typical score lineup. Except I don't know if there's anybody who nominated The Holdover score. So that's interesting that it got in here.
Yeah. And I will say, like, talking about the foreign films, like the ones that were almost on that bubble as well, like Zone of Interest score had two nominations, and then The Boy and the Heron score had about 2 nominations. Those were the only 3 foreign films that had any chance of about cracking it. All the others kind of only got 1 vote. Moving on to the category for Best Sound. Just outside of the nominations for Best Sound, we've got The Iron Claw, Barbie, No One Will Save You, and Napoleon. But our nominations for Best Sound, we have Oppenheimer, Zone of Interest, John Wick 4, Godzilla Minus One, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Best Sound?
There's a better lineup than what the Oscars gave up. I mean, we already got John Wick in here. Which is nice to see. I love seeing Godzilla in there. It's Zone of Interest. We know how good the sound in that movie is. So very good choices here by the voters. Very good choices. I really like this lineup.
Yeah, this is for me. This is not overly surprising. Like, once again, Oppenheimer was the clear favorite on this. It was on almost everyone's ballot, but except one. But all the other, it's definitely one of those ones that I don't have any, like, out of the moves I've seen anyway, I don't have any issues with any of these being here. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Best Sound?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I really am impressed with this lineup for sound. I think this is a fantastic. Glad to see the John Wick in here. You know, sad to see The Killer's not in here, but you know, I mean, you can only have so many nominees. So, but this is really good, really impressive batch of films nominated in sound.
But moving on to Best Makeup and Hairstyling, just outside of the nominations, Wonka and Renfield are both there. And there was also a couple of nominations for Sword X as well. But our nominations for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, we have got Oppenheimer, Maestro, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Barbie, and Poor Things. So once again, it's a lot of the usual suspects here. At least 2 that should have been on the at least on the shortlist of the Oscars made it in. And Maestro got in again as well. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nomination for Makeup and Hairstyling?
This is the 5. This is the 5 we should have gotten. Maybe Society of the Snow, maybe, but I'm not upset with this 5 at all. The Oscars need to look at the Gone with the Wind awards and say, hey, this is what we should have been doing.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for makeup and hairstyling?
Yeah, I mean, like this is basically my ballot. I mean, like this is a great choices here by the voters, and makes more sense than the sort of weird lineup that we got from the Oscars on this front. But yeah, I think these are solid choices here.
But moving on to best costume design, just outside of the nominations, we got The Holdovers, Color Purple, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Priscilla. But nominated for costume design, we have got Oppenheimer, Wonka, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Poor Things, Barbie, and Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for costume design?
Well, I remember when we were talking about the Costume Guild, and we were talking about a couple of these categories. I brought up the Hunger Games and thinking Hunger Games, I thought in makeup and hair and costumes and maybe song and some things could get in. And I'm glad to see that the Gone with the Wind folks, the people that voted for the Gone with the Wind, reflected my thoughts on costume for the Hunger Games. But the rest of them are pretty, glad to see Guardians in here in costumes. Yeah, I like this batch of films, and I'm glad they're giving some love to the Hunger Games.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nomination for costume design?
Yeah, I like these also, and I'm happy to see the Hunger Games getting in here as well, because that was on my personal ballot for costumes. I don't know how you ignored the work that they were able to do in the costumes for that movie. Even if you're not crazy about the film, it's throughout the entire series is crazy the things that they do with the costumes and the makeup in that movie. But yeah, this is a solid lineup.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about this. And yeah, considering like everyone's thoughts about Oppenheimer just being suits and ties, I'm a little bit surprised that it still got in, regardless of people criticisms about that. But yeah, it's a pretty good lineup, and like the top two contenders are actually easily Poor Things and Barbie, so it'll be interesting to see when what happens when it comes to the actual voting, because both of those were on 10 ballots. So, all right, moving on to production design. Just outside of production design, we've got Killers of the Flower Moon, John Wick 4, and The Color Purple. Godzilla Minus One also was around there as well. But nominated for production design, we've got Oppenheimer, Barbie, Poor Things, Wonka, and Asteroid City. Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for production design?
Yeah, these are solid as well. I'm surprised to hear that Godzilla Minus One apparently was on the bubble, because even I didn't have it down on my personal ballot for production design. So that's interesting. But yeah, another good showing here. I think we're seeing a pattern here that I think the voters are giving us, in my opinion, a better lineup than the Oscars gave us on a lot of these. So yeah, I can't complain about these choices.
Yeah, I don't have any issues. Like it's just one of those ones. I'm glad that Wonka's getting some love here. But yeah, just Asteroid City getting in here, I think was always a no-brainer. Just yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations of production design?
Once again, the Gone with the Wind voters, we get the categories right. The Oscars get them wrong because Asteroid City's in here, and that should have been in the Oscar 5. I don't know what they were thinking.
But moving on to best editing, once again on the bubble, we've got The Iron Claw, John Wick 4, Godzilla Minus One was also on the bubble there as well. But our nominations for best film editing, we've got Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I honestly don't have any issues with any of this. Like, because I think the editing, the tricks and stuff they did for Spider-Verse is great. I was a little bit surprised that Holdovers actually got in here, but I do think it was really well edited and all that as well. And you've got the obvious ones like Oppenheimer and Barbie and all that as well. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for best editing?
Yeah, these are pretty much the usual suspects. I mean, obviously John Wick is a great greatly edited movie, but it wasn't going to pop up. I mean, no one. I mean, whoever voted for that, good on you that it came where it had a potential to get in here. But yeah, these are pretty much the usual suspects.
And Lewis, what are your thoughts about best editing?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid lineup. I'm looking at my personal ballot for editing right now, and I think all but 2 of these 6 are on my ballot. So, and it's nice to hear Godzilla on the bubble on here. But for the most part, I think this is a solid lineup. I think Across the Spider-Verse, and I wasn't even as wild about that movie as a lot of other people may have been. I thought Across the Spider-Verse does deserve consideration for its editing. But it is interesting to see holdovers in here again, showing strength for the film up and down the ballot here, even a little bit more than we may have seen at the Oscars.
Yeah. But moving on to the next category, and it's going to show that how much love Godzilla Minus One actually has in this community, because on the bubble for cinematography, we've got Godzilla Minus One, Saltburn, and Barbie. But our nominations for best cinematography, we have got Oppenheimer, Poor Things, John Wick Chapter 4, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, and Maestro. Dan, I know you're happy to see one thing in there.
You got that right. Got the best cinematography in the whole friggin' of all the movies of the entire year in here. Can't get it in the Oscars, but we get it in the Gone with the Wind Awards. I mean, and then you got the usual suspects, Oppenheimer, all those movies are in there. I mean, I guess the Gone with the Wind voters have a little bit better set of eyes than the Oscar voters do.
And Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for cinematography?
Yeah, again, solid again. Though it's interesting that Godzilla Minus One was on the bubble, because even I don't have that in cinematography for my personal ballot. So that's interesting that it got close there. But no, this is a good lineup as is, and I'm happy to see John Wick show up here, because it does deserve consideration for cinematography. So, but yeah, this is a solid lineup.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with any of this. Like, once again, a lot of these were as the usual suspects, and ones that maybe should have gotten in at the Oscars, but it is what it is. But moving on to cast ensemble. On the bubble for cast ensemble, we've got Air, American Fiction, The Color Purple, and Ashwood City, and Wonka. But our nominations for cast ensemble, we've got Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Barbie, The Iron Claw, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Lewis, what are your thoughts about cast ensemble?
Well, I mean, that's a lot that got in there. That's a lot of nominees. I'm happy with I'm happy with a couple of those. It kind of kills me not to see Color Purple in there, because for me personally, that's the best ensemble of the year. But yeah, that's a lot that got in there, Malcolm. A lot of people had unique votes, I would guess, on this one.
Yeah. At least 4 of them. At least 4 of these we're all tied on 4, and it's just one of those ones that just. But yeah, there's a lot of unique votes around, because once again, Oppenheimer was the clear favorite in this, and all the others were really around the 4 in that. But Dan, what are your thoughts about nomination for cast ensemble?
Yeah, I would have liked to see maybe Air get in there instead of the Iron Claw, because I love the ensemble in Air. I think that's an incredible ensemble. But I mean, and you forewarned me that there was some categories that was going to have a lot of nominees, and obviously this is one of them. So, but Color Purple getting in here is great. Obviously,
No, it didn't get in here.
Huh?
It
Oh,
didn't.
Color Purple was on the bubble.
Yeah. Never mind. I thought you said it wasn't.
No, I was complaining about the fact that it didn't get in here.
Yeah, that's a great ensemble. That's terrible if it didn't get in here. But what are you gonna do?
I mean, it's one of those ones. I think it's just one of those ones especially for some people, maybe it just they didn't get around to seeing it, and because I know there's a lot of people just weren't really interested in seeing a musical version of The Color Purple anyway. So I know some people that put ballots, and they weren't that high on the original movie, so it was like they didn't really want to see it again. But moving on to best documentary, and I will say this is the one that was the most interesting because for a long time it was looking like this was only going to have 4 nominations until the last ballot was submitted. But it was just because we had 4 documentaries that had a lot of favorite, lot of votes, and then a whole bunch of them had just 1 vote. But some of the nominations that just were outside that were nominations, some of these I've never even heard of before, but there was like You're My First Boyfriend, Orlando, a political biography, Taylor Mack's 24-decade history of popular music, which I think all 3 of them were put in by Sean. But
you knew exactly who put those in. Yep.
And sadly, the Pigeon Tunnel only got 1 vote. 4 Doors only got 1 vote.
That was probably me.
But moving on, but our nominations for best documentary, we have got still a Michael J. Fox story, Beyond Utopia, 20 Days in Mariupol, Lakota Nation versus United States, Minus Placer Le Trois Bras, American Symphony.
Wow. Look at this.
Mm.
Look at this batch of documentaries, Lewis.
Yeah, it looks better than what the Oscars gave us, I'll tell you that.
Wow. What a batch of documentaries. Jesus. This.
But
Go ahead, Malcolm.
yeah, I was gonna be quick anyway. I don't have much to say because I haven't seen any of the other ones anyway. But still, it just goes to show how much people outside of the Academy like Michael J. Fox and that documentary. But Dan, what are your thoughts about best documentary?
I'm just shocked that the 4-hour food documentary on the restaurant got in here. I mean, obviously, a lot of people saw that, or enough people saw that to where it got in here because that was I loved the movie, don't get me wrong, but it was a long ass. I did the double real quick, Malcolm. I did the double of that and the other Steve McQueen World War II or a war movie documentary that Steve McQueen produced in the same day. So I watched 2 documentaries. It took 8 hours to get through both of them.
Yeah.
So that was a long day for me. I don't know if Lewis did that or not, but
No, I did not.
I mean, just a quick side note. It was only on 2 ballots, but only got because like my goal was I wanted to have at least 5 nominations in these categories, and so because it had 2 votes, like it was going to get in, and I think it might have actually been Dylan and Chad that got it in.
No, I definitely was one of them, Malcolm, because that's that's my personal favorite documentary film of the year. So
okay, so actually, it must have had to be you and either you and Dylan or you and Chad. I think it might have been you and
Dylan.
No, I know Dylan really likes that as well.
Yeah, I did.
Lewis,
I remember
Lewis,
Dylan. He loved it.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about best doc?
yeah, this one makes more sense than what the Oscars gave us, if you ask me. I'm ecstatic to see Menus Placiers. I always have a hard time knowing how to say it, but I love that documentary. Even though it is a long, gonna have to invest time in it sort of documentary, but that was my favorite documentary of the year, and I'm really happy to see it get some love here because some critics places gave it love, but then for it to not even make the short list at the Oscars was really frustrating to see.
Yeah. And we've
My
now
favorite
got a
doc of the year got in there though.
we've-
On Utopia. Someone says what was it?
Hey, take a drink every time someone says better than the Oscars.
I got a drink here. So.
Yeah, I got some water here, so I got something.
But moving on to a category I added in for the first time to these, just because I thought I wanted.
Can I just say one thing quick? I'm sorry, Mark. I apologize. Can I just say one thing? I am so happy to see Lakota Nation versus United States get some votes. I think that documentary is such a phenomenal documentary, and I'm glad to see the Gone with the Wind voters put that in there. I had to put my 2 cents in for that, Malcolm. Sorry.
Yeah, that doc's on my personal ballot too. So I agree with you,
Yeah.
Dan. I'm very happy to see it get in there.
But moving on to one of the first new categories I threw into these, just to add some variety into this, best comedy movie. And just on the bubble outside, got Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, No Hard Feelings, and Joyride. But nominated for best comedy, we've got Poor Things, Bottoms, The Holdovers, Barbie, and American Fiction. Lewis,
Is
what are
Barbie
your thoughts
a
about
comedy? Is Barbie a comedy?
Yeah.
It,
Hey, what?
I-
That's
I-
absolutely a comedy.
I'm just checking. That's fine. It's fine. This is a good line. Go ahead, Lewis. Lewis, go
Lewis,
ahead.
what are your thoughts about best comedy?
Well, I mean, I don't mean to seem in a bad way because I think it's for the most part it's a good lineup, but it's also pretty generic. It's kind of the movies you would expect to be there. A lot of these movies are top tier contenders for Best Picture as well. So I mean, a good lineup, but nothing really. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more like something out of left field here. Like, it's even Bottoms, like that's showing up in a lot of people's best comedy list. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it's one of those ones like Bottoms is I mean, well, yeah, for the most part, a lot of these are pretty much the generic lineup, but Bottoms is the one that surprised me that it got as much nominations as it did. Because, well, I know people love that movie. I didn't realize they were that much in love with the movie, if that makes any sense.
Well, I've been noticing it show up on a lot of critics, like best when they do a best comedy feature. I've been showing it showed up practically everywhere. So,
oh yeah, no, I know there's a lot of love for the movie. It's just one of those ones like, especially with in this community, I don't see a lot of people talking about it here. But I know there's a lot of love in the critics in that. But then, what are your thoughts about best comedy movie?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was looking forward to seeing Bottoms. I had to drive a long way to go see it, and I saw it, and I watched it. I didn't laugh once, and everybody's like, "What do you mean you didn't laugh once?"
yeah, what do you mean?
It wasn't funny to me. It was. I'll be honest. It wasn't even that good. It's a bottom of the barrel ripoff of Fight Club is what it is, and it's like, really, why do people like this? I don't get it. So I would have had Joyride or even Dungeons and Dragons in here over Bottoms myself, but hey, it's a community, so I mean they voted in. I have nothing to say about that.
I mean, it's one of those ones like, as I always say, comedy is probably one of the most subjective genres as it is. But moving on to the other one of the new categories I threw in here, which is best horror movie. Just on the bubble, Thanksgiving and Saw X was on the bubble there, but nominated for best horror movie, we've got Talk to Me, Godzilla -1, Scream 6, Evil Dead Rise, and When Evil Lurks. I'm glad they Talk to Me in here. I think that's great. And I've heard a lot of good things about When Evil Lurks. I just haven't got around to seeing it. It's one of those ones like Evil Dead Rise. I think is fine, but I honestly love Thanksgiving a lot more personally. But Dan, what are your thoughts about best horror movie?
Yeah, I would have had When Evil Lurks out of there and Thanksgiving in there if it was me. I think the first half of When Evil Lurks is good. The second half, it just meanders and drags, and it just really drags the whole movie down. The second half of the movie does. It's slow. It's like, what the hell is going on here? What can you please have something going on in this movie? But Thanksgiving was a blast. It was violent. It was bloody. It was gory. It was crazy. That was a much better pick than When Evil Lurks, if you ask me.
And Lewis, what are your thoughts about best horror movie?
Well, I liked When Evil Lurks. I thought it was a pretty decent horror flick. But out of these, I mean, this is a nice lineup, except, I don't get this love for Scream 6. I wasn't
I
a
like
big fan of that film. I thought it was just I thought it was messy. I thought it was too meta. I didn't like the reveal was so anticlimactic. But I don't know. I keep seeing it show up in a lot of these best horror. And of course, I'm ecstatic to see Godzilla -1 show up here. I mean, it should show up here because it's currently in the Letterboxd top 10 horror. So it would, I'm happy to see it here. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I just wish I got the love for Scream 6 that other people have.
But moving on to best foreign language movie, just on the bubble, we've got Fallen Leaves, The Taste of Things Inside the Snow, but our nominations. And fun fact, before I reveal this, because I want you to guess on what movie had the most nominations, one of these movies was the leading nomination getter with 8. All the others were tied on 4. But nominated for best foreign language film, we've got Godzilla -1, Anatomy of a Fool, Perfect Days, Past Lives, and The Zone of Interest. And
I will
and
say
as well
Perfect Days. I will say Perfect Days had the most votes.
you would be incorrect.
Damn it!
I don't have much to say just because I haven't seen any of these movies. These are the kind of ones that have been popping up a lot anyway.
Boy, your boy,
yeah.
the love for -1 for Lewis. Boy, he's having a field day here with all these nominations for -1.
I mean, the funny thing is that it's actually I've seen it do even better than this because when we were over in Puerto Rico, we gave it like score and I think we gave it may have given no we gave it score, which it almost got into score here, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the movie that has some of the best audience scores of the year. So a lot of young people that I talk to are really buzzing about it. So I'm not surprised at all that it showed up here. The others I think are solid choices. I think all of these except Past Lives would be my. Well, I didn't even think about putting Past Lives here because I don't necessarily see that as an international feature. I think of more of that as a American produced film. But I understand the argument that some make for it to be on something like this. But for the most part, this is my ballot. It sucks to see Taste of Things once again come up short. It's so frustrating to see that movie keep getting hurt because of the whole situation with Anatomy of a Fall. It's been very frustrating to see that happen to that movie. But what are you going to do? And also, considering the voters for this, I think a lot of them haven't even caught up to it because I think it just came out wide here in the States. Whereas we had the IFC screener, Dan. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, I like this lineup.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about the foreign language film lineup?
Yeah, this is great. Glad to see Perfect Days in here again. Anatomy of a Fall is half English, half French, German. Past Lives is half Korean, half English. So, I mean, there's enough foreign language, but a lot of people are doing this. Like a lot of the guilds are doing this, where they're letting people vote for Past Lives and Anatomy of a Fall in an international feature category. I think maybe the international feature department or the voter or whatever they should reevaluate that for the Oscars and maybe have to figure something out. But I mean, I think the reason why they do it the way they do it is so little countries like Bhutan and people like that can possibly get a film nominated. I believe, and it's representative of that country, and so I think that's why they have the rules the way they do. But there should be maybe a reevaluation of these
Yes,
rules.
there absolutely needs to be a reevaluation.
Well, it's why it's hired this foreign language as opposed to international film, just because I thought it's easier.
Okay. Well, okay, that makes sense then why
Okay.
people were putting Past Lives because you can make a very strong argument that that's mostly a Korean film in terms of the language.
Yeah, because I haven't seen Anatomy of a Fall, so I don't know the things, but because I think the Oscars have a rule about it has to have 75% foreign language or something like that. So and Past Lives is the one that I've seen, and like it is more foreign language than 50%. I'd have that. But Lewis, did you have a guess of which of these foreign language movies you think had the most nominations?
I'm gonna guess Godzilla -1.
You would be correct on that.
I'm telling you, it has some of the highest audience scores of the year. It's got audience scores like Oppenheimer. Like the more people watch that movie, the more they just glean onto it.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, if I didn't already know the answer, I would have guessed Past Lives because I know a lot, at least a lot of people in this community really like Past Lives as well. So, but they also really like Godzilla -1 too.
Yeah,
so.
and I think Godzilla -1 is just. I feel like it's a little bit more accessible. Whereas Past Lives is like you still got to try to spread the word. I like the only reason I got a couple of my casual friends to watch it because I literally had to sit them down and screen the movie to them. You know, it's not easy to come up to a casual moviegoer and be like, "Hey, have you checked out this movie, Past Lives?" You know, that's not. Whereas it's easier to say, "Oh, go see a new Godzilla film."
Yeah. But moving on to Best Animated Feature, just on the bubble outside of the nominations, we got Nimona and Suzume. Migration did get a couple of votes too. I just wanted to throw that in for Dan. But nominated for Best Animated Feature, we've got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Elemental, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, Super Mario Brothers Movie, and The Boy and the Heron. It's kind of the expected lineup, especially in this community anyway. But so there's nothing really too surprising here. But yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Best Animated Feature?
Yeah, I figure with some of the voters that may have voted for this, maybe would have seen more of Robot Dreams, but obviously that didn't translate to this group. This is you want to talk about the usual suspects. This is really the usual suspects in animation. I'll tell you that right now. There's no outside the box picks or nothing in here.
Well, Robot Dreams has had a very weird rollout. I mean, the news came out today that it's not opening wide till freaking May.
You know, because they want kids to go see it.
I mean,
Parents take their kids to go see it. Kids are out of school in May.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I will add. I'm not. I would say there's precedent for that because over here, especially when it comes to animated movies, like a lot of times they will delay the release until it ties in with a school holiday. That's one of the holiday when kids are off school, so there's got something to go see. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Best Animated Feature?
I mean, I personally would replace Super Mario with something else. But I guess, you know, like I've talked about this, whatever my problems with that movie, like you just look at the data, the general audiences responded really well to that film. And I think that's just something that got played here. And of course I'm happy to see Elemental in there because how much I like it. But I got to tell you, I think this is a slightly better lineup. Well, I would say it's technically a little bit more accessible lineup than what the Oscars gave us, especially since people are still waiting around they're going to have to wait around to see Robot Dreams.
Yeah.
And Neon's been dropped the ball all award season this year. They dropped the ball with
the only thing
Perfect Days hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
I mean, and Robot Dreams, they don't expect that to win, so they probably said, hell with it, we'll put it in May. Maybe we'll make more money on it, you know?
The only thing that they were good with was Anatomy of a Fall.
Yeah.
After that, it was just like botch campaign after botch campaign. Like, Perfect Days. Yeah, Perfect Days got into international feature, but I think it was in spite of them because I did not think they were very good at getting that movie out there.
Yeah. But I will say there was a couple. Just because we're a little bit ahead of time at the moment, there was a couple outside the box picks that only appeared on one ballot that I wanted to highlight. On one person's ballot, I'm not going to name names, but they had Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, on their ballot. That someone had a movie.
We got 6-year-olds voting in this.
I mean, it could just be they saw it and really loved it. I mean, it's possible to connect to it, but and a couple of the other outside ones, The Peasants appeared on the ballot. A movie called My Love Affair with Marriage appeared, and there was a movie called
The Peasants is amazing, Malcolm. It's just the story that
Yeah.
accompanies the peasants isn't necessarily the most accessible story. That's all I'm going to say. If you see the peasants, Malcolm, oh my God, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautifully animated films I've seen, but the story is so sad.
But moving on to best original screenplay, and I will say for all these screenplay categories, I did have to do some creativeness with this because there were some people that are putting movies that are obviously adapted into original, and there was a couple that was on the other they were put into adapted that the original was, but the only one that I wasn't going to mess with just because I wanted to let the votes decide on when it was going to end up naturally is Barbie, just because there's that whole thing about that. Not getting into that debate today, but just on the bubble for original screenplay, Maestro, Anatomy of a Fool, Missing, we're all outside of the nominations for original screenplay, but nominated for original screenplay, we've got The Holdovers, Past Lives, Air, which is original, which, after I did some research, May December, Saltburn, and Asteroid City. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for original screenplay?
I mean, for the most part, I like this lineup, but I am stunned that Anatomy of Fall didn't get in. Like as for people who aren't aware, like I don't love that movie as much as others do, but I do think it's a solid film, and I think it is one of the best original screenplays of the year. And I was on my ballot. I'm stunned that that movie didn't get in, especially with the momentum that has been experiencing that category of late for award season. I mean, the others I'm fine with for the most part, but wow, I would not have had Anatomy missing here on my bingo card. I thought for sure they would get in here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was the same. Like, it's one of those ones. Like, I know that a lot of people do love Anatomy of a Fool. So I was a little bit surprised that it didn't get more votes. I mean, for the most part, I think it could just be a lot of people really liked what the other ones that they had on a little bit more. But that being said, I'm just pleasantly surprised. Asteroid City is getting some love here, and I do think its screenplay is great. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for original screenplay?
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm, I loved Asteroid City. I mean, it was in my top 3 movies of the year halfway through the year, and I think it has a lot of things in it, but I don't think the screenplay is any better than Anatomy of a Fall. As a matter of fact, I think the screenplay of Anatomy of a Fall is better than the screenplay of Asteroid City. I would have definitely replaced Asteroid City with Anatomy of a Fall here, and I think that would have been a nice group of nominees. You know, glad to see people are recognizing Air though, because I really think one of the strong points of Air is its screenplay, and if there was some craziness in screenplay, maybe Air could have gotten in the Oscars, but obviously there wasn't. But yeah, sad to see Anatomy of a Fall not in here.
But moving on to adapted screenplay, just on the bubble for adapted screenplay, we've got All of Us Strangers, Godzilla -1, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We're just on the bubble for adapted screenplay. But nominated for adapted screenplay, we've got Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, American Fiction, and Barbie. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for adapted screenplay?
Well, I want to applaud the community for putting Barbie in the correct place in adapted, and I think this is a pretty nice lineup for the most part. Interesting to see Godzilla -1 on the bubble here because I do think that screenplay is very underrated considering what the director was able to accomplish with that movie, given that there's a million other Godzilla films and he tried to do some new stuff with it. But for the most part, I think it's a solid lineup. Um, and I applaud the community for putting Barbie in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like I get the arguments for Barbie and all that, and it's one of those ones like I'm fine with it being adapted. I still personally consider it the original myself, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's for the most part, I'm happy with the nominations. And yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts about adapted screenplay?
Yeah, there's two of them in there that I wish weren't in there, but what am I going to do? I mean, you put ballots out there for people to vote, and they have to vote on on their conscience and what they feel like is best. I would have had Zone of Interest in here. I would have had. Did American Fiction make it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. But yeah, I would have had Zone of Interest in here. I'll be honest with you. Poor Things. Did Poor Things make it in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So. Did Oppenheimer make it in here?
Yes.
That's good. That's good. At least those ones, at least the ones that are supposed to make it in here made it in. But I liked Zone of Interest. What can I say? I think from what I heard though, the movie is vastly different than the book that it's based on. So maybe for the right reasons it didn't make it. But I didn't like the screenplay of Killers of the Flower Moon. That's what am I? I'm not going to get into a whole diatribe about it again.
But moving on to Best Director, just on the bubble for Best Director, we've got Bradley Cooper for Maestro and Ben Affleck for Air, and Paul King for Wonka was just on the bubble as well. But that one I wasn't expecting to get in because
I bet you voted for Paul King, didn't you, Malcolm? I knew it.
Yeah. I mean, I love Wonka. I'm not going
That's fine. I love Wonka too. I'm glad you voted.
He's a good director.
But the nominations for Best Director, we've got Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Alexander Payne for The Holdovers, Greta Gerwig for Barbie, and I'm going to butcher this name, Takashi Yamasaki for Godzilla Minus One.
Let's go. Let's go.
Lewis and his goddamn minus one. How does this guy get into director? Come on.
Dude, I let me jump in here. I love this lineup. I love it. Even though I would have picked no offense to Greta, but like I said, I think I would rank Triet, Song, Fennel higher in terms of directing among the ladies, but I understand why she's in here. We all know how big Barbie is. Yamasaki definitely absolutely deserves to be in here. The work that he did with this movie to get it to with such a small budget and to do what he did, where he wrote it, directed it, and supervised the visual effects. And he can now say that he directed a Godzilla film to get an Oscar nomination. And not to mention the Japanese Academy nominated for 12 awards, including Best Director. I'm very happy to see him here. I think he deserves to be in here. He's the only guy that would compete with me personally for Nolan for the Best Director of the Year. Obviously the nomination is to win for him, because I would guess that Nolan's probably going to be a heavy favorite to win this with us, as he has won everywhere else. But I love this lineup, and I want to thank the community for the love that they gave Minus One.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones, knowing people that sent in nominations. I'm pretty sure Piers had him in his 5 for director as well, because I know Piers really loves Godzilla Minus One as well. But yeah, it's one of those ones. Once again, I'm a little bit surprised, but also not surprised to see him make it into, because I know a lot of people do love Godzilla and all that. Because for some people, Godzilla Minus One is the best film of the year.
It is the best film of the year, if you ask me. Yes, Oppenheimer's a close number 2, Dan. Oppenheimer's a close number 2.
I think what Bradley Cooper did in Maestro is.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but you and me are on an island, Dan, defending that movie. I do think he has so. Bradley Cooper is in my personal battle for director. I thought he did incredible work directing that film.
But Dan, what are your thoughts for the nominations?
Nah, these are good. These are good. I mean, it just tells you that we really had a strong year for female directors this year with Emerald Fennell, Celine Song, Justine Triet, Greta Gerwig. Really strong year for female.
Ava.
Ava DuVernay for op. You could have had a 5 of women. You could have had 5 director category of just women. That would have been crazy, you know. It's been a really good year. Even in some like this smaller movies had female. I think Bottoms was directed by a woman.
Yeah.
You know, some of these other type of movies, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, this is fine. I give Lewis a hard time, but this is a good lineup.
Yeah. And it's one of those ones like and actually the female I was kind of surprised, especially with the love Past Lives been getting, that Celine Song did not appear on anyone's nomination at all for this.
Not a single person.
Not a single person.
I think that just shows you that when people try to award that movie, they seem to just focus more on the screenplay.
Yeah, a couple of the interesting ones that did appear on people's nominations, though. Emma Seligman for Bottoms did appear on someone's nomination. Kelly Freeman Craig for A Dear God It's Me Margaret also appeared on one as well. And Chad Stileski for John Wick 4 was also on someone's ballot.
Oh, I mean, if we were allowed to do a ballot of 10, I would have had him on there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Great work.
But moving on to the category of Best Young Actor Actress, on the bubble for Young Actor Actress was Amy Donald for Megan, Rachel Zegler for Hunger Games, and Andrew Feldman for No Hard Feelings. But the nominations for Best Young Actor we have Abby Ryder-Fortson for A Dear God It's Me Margaret, Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, Milo Mercado Granier for Enemy of a Fool, Ariana Greenblatt for Barbie, Madeline Nunes Voiles for The Creator, Calla Lane for Wonka, and Storm Reid for Missing. I'm personally glad to see Missing get some love here because I do think Storm Reid was great in the movie, and I think I'm also glad to see Calla Lane for Wonka in here because I think she was also great. But yeah, but judging from the love and the way that I think this is going to go, I think there's a lot of love with both Abby Ryder-Fortson and Dominic Sessa, so I think one of them is likely going to win this. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Best Young Actor / Actress?
Yeah, I mean, this is the usual suspects here. When I seen Storm Reid, I said to myself, Malcolm must have voted for her and a couple other people. How she ended up getting in here because I know you're high on Missing, Malcolm. So I had a feeling that's the reason how that got in there. But yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, I don't have any problems with this. I'm glad to see some of these people. You know, the Creator kid, the girl from Creator, the girl from Barbie getting in here because I forgot about her. When I actually created a young adult, a young category for my guild, and I forgot about her. And I nominated Abby Ryder-Fortson and Milo Machado Granier, and those are the 2 that we had to pick from on our guild. But I did forget about Ariana Greenblatt. She's really good in Barbie.
Yeah, and Lewis, what are your thoughts about Young Actor / Actress?
Yeah, I can't complain with these. I think this is a good lineup. Yeah, I mean, I really can't add much to it. I think it's a good lineup. And I mean, Storm Reid is good to have on here. She wasn't on my personal ballot, but I thought she was good in Missing.
Yeah. But moving on to Best Supporting Actress, just on the bubble, we had Claire Foy for All of Us Strangers, Julianne Moore for May December, and Florence Pugh for Oppenheimer. But the nominations for Best Supporting Actress is, once I find the graphic, because I didn't have it in the order of, we had Devon Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Viola Davis for Air, America Ferrera for Barbie, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks once again getting the sole nomination for The Color Purple, and Rachel McAdams for A Dear God It's Me Margaret. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nomination for Supporting Actress?
Yeah, it continues to astound me how good Danielle Brooks' performance was able to hit with people that even we've seen it here, we've seen it with other places where even where The Color Purple doesn't do so hot, she still finds a way to keep getting nominated for supporting actress, and she's my personal best supporting actress of the year. Divine Joy is a very close second for me. So I think this is a good lineup that we got here. I mean, we got Rachel McAdams, which a lot of people forget. She didn't get into Oscar, but she was like the only one who has seemingly been able to beat Divine in a competitive category. But yeah, I think this is a good lineup. I also like seeing Viola Davis getting in here.
Yeah, I don't have any major issues with this nomination. Like for me personally, because I was one of the ones that had Florence Pugh instead of Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, but just because I think Florence Pugh was better than Blunt, but I'm saying Blunt was bad because I do think she was still good in the movie. But yeah, but for me, Divine Joy Reynolds is still easily the heavy favorite here. Dan, what are your thoughts about supporting actress?
Yeah, I mean, this is really good. I would have not had Emily Blunt in here, but that's just me. I just think she's done better work in other movies in the past. I don't think she's doing that great of work in this. I don't get the love of her character in this movie. Just because she doesn't shake the guy's hand at the end and she gives him a look, that's supposed to be a good performance. I don't get it.
But when she faces down the lawyer, that's a good scene.
Lawyer.
When she tells him, "I don't like your phrase."
Oh yeah. And she's drunk early in the movie. She's acting all drunk. I don't know. I mean, it's just I would have found somebody else to give nominations to in these categories, but obviously I'm wrong because Emily Blunt's getting in everywhere. Everybody's been voting for her. So hey.
runner up at both of the groups, Central Florida and Puerto Rico. Runner up.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. I just I don't get it. I don't think she's that great, but that's just me.
But moving on to supporting actor, just on the bubble, missing out on the nominations. Charles Melton was just on the bubble. Willem Dafoe for Poor Things. Jamie Bell for All of Us Strangers. Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction. And Glenn Howerton for Blackberry. But nominated for Best Supporting Actor, we have got Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. Ryan Gosling for Barbie. Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. Basically, the very similar to the Oscars. And I'm glad to see Dominic Sessa getting a double love for young actor and supporting it, because I do think he's really good in the movie, and I think he's great. And yeah, there's nothing much to say about this that we haven't already said about other supporting actor races, because this is pretty much the same as the Oscars, with the one exception of Sessa. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for supporting actor?
Yeah, I'm pretty upset here because, I mean, I love Dominic Sessa and I love The Holdovers, don't get me wrong, but I think the better performance to me is Sterling K. Brown. I think he got robbed here. He should have been in this batch of nominees. I just think maybe that's one of those ones where a lot of people didn't see American Fiction and they haven't seen his performance. That's all I could think of. Because once people see that movie and they see his performance, they'll freaking just absolutely love him because he is fantastic in that movie. That's all I have on that.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for supporting actor?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much the standard, except replacing Brown with Sessa. Some folks would be upset with Melton not getting in here. I know Dan won't be one of those folks. But I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect from the supporting actor 5, except of course Sessa. And again, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. The voters clearly love The Holdovers because this thing is doing even better than it did at the Oscars so far. So yeah, it's interesting to see it get in.
I love that film as well.
Yeah, well, the one thing I will say about American Fiction, I think it's just simply a case of it's not as far as I know, it's not widely available in a lot of places. because it's still not out here in New Zealand. So I think that's probably what, just cases not enough people have seen it out. But yeah. But moving on to lead actor, just on the bubble for lead actor, it Koji Takasho for Perfect Days, Matt Damon for Air, Barry Keoghan for Saltburn, Joaquin Phoenix for Birds Afraid, but nominated for Best Actor, we've got Cillian Murphy for The Holdovers. Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Zac Efron for The Encore, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, and Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers. And one note of fact is this is the only category which had somewhat, which one of the nominations was on everyone's ballot. Cillian Murphy was on everyone's ballot. Not he wasn't always the number one on those ballots, but he was on everyone's ballot. But I'm glad to see Zac Efron get in here because I think he was great in The Iron Claw. And yeah, I mean a lot of these is pretty much standard, and this is one of those cases where because of how high everyone was on both Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti, on other people's ballots, like it was all over the place, which is why like Jeffrey Wright snuck in here because he only appeared on three people's ballots, similar to Sterling K. Brown, but just because it was just as really tight on a couple of the people, then it's all over the place. But then what if it's the nominations for lead actor?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I would have not had Zac Efron in here. I don't think he's given that great a performance. I think his hair distracts from him. I think he's kind of acting goofy. He's kind of acting goofy in the movie a little bit. And I'll be honest, there's just something about that movie that just doesn't translate. I've watched movies about wrestlers before, and they're serious. It's like, we talked about it in sports movies when we did the voting for that episode of Rankum. I've seen movies about wrestling and they take it serious. It's not a joke. And it seems like there was like underlying like a comedic kind of thing going on here with the Iron Clock, which it shouldn't have been. And that's how I felt when I was watching. I was like, this isn't supposed to be funny. These people died. And I just feel like Zac Efron's, I couldn't take him seriously in that role. That's just my 2 cents. I'm glad everybody else likes them, like the movie more than me. I grew up with the Von Erichs. I watched these guys wrestle, so I know this story. This story wasn't anything new to me, But if I like the father, I'll be honest. I thought Colt McElhaney was the best performance in the whole movie. If I had to pick somebody.
I will say Holt did get a nomination in supporting actor, but he just didn't.
That was me. That was me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as well as ones like I just had other. I think I also put him on my list too, because I did my ballot just after seeing the Iron Claw. But anyway, Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nomination for lead actor?
I mean, I saw a different movie than Dan did. I did not think Zac Efron came off goofy at all. I thought he came out earnest and he really, to me, came off like Kevin Von Erich. With the exception that maybe he was a little more jacked than Kevin actually was in real life. But you look at these 7, and it's basically the 7 that everybody was debating about throughout awards season. It's kind of like there's just the Oscar 5 and the 2 that people were wanting to maybe squeeze in there, Scott and Efron. So I think for the most part, this is a ballot that just leaves everybody happy.
Koji should have been in here over Zac Efron.
Well, he should have been in here, but I wouldn't have taken out Zac Efron.
I mean, once again, I think it comes down to the accessibility of Perfect Days. And
now, how many votes did Koji get?
I believe it was just 2.
Was that? It may have just been you and me, Dan. Did you put him in there? It may have just been you and me.
Yeah. But moving on to lead actress, just on the bubble for lead actress, Fantasia Bruno for The Color Purple was just outside. Rachel Ziegler for The Hunger Games was just outside, and Jennifer Lawrence for No Hard Feelings was just outside. But nominated for lead actress, we have got Emma Stone for Poor Things, Margot Robbie for Barbie, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, Sandra Hüller for Name of a Fool, and Lily Gladstone for The Killers of the Flower Moon. Once again, it's basically
It's the Oscar 5.
the Oscars.
Just
It was
switch out.
yeah.
Yeah, Robbie instead of Benning.
And I think maybe it just came down to people not seeing Naiad.
Absolutely guaranteed nobody saw Naiad, Malcolm. Guaranteed.
I mean, I just simply wasn't interested in seeing.
Well, it's on Netflix. It's no excuse for people not to see the movie. But whatever. I'm not going to.
Well, I mean,
they gave
Well, I was
me
about to
and Dan a nice water bottle, so that's probably why we saw it.
I mean, what I was about to add, it's not so much the fact that it's not accessible to people. I think it's more interest in people wanting to see it.
You're right.
That-
No,
that-
100% I agree, Malcolm. 100% I agree with you.
But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for lead actress?
Yeah, this is the usual suspects. I mean, Gone with the Wind Awards are trying to say, Oscars, you're wrong. We're going to put in Greta. We're going to put in Margot Robbie. We're going to show you. And that's what they did. So that's why we have them in it. But, I'm sad to see Fantasia out because I really did like Fantasia in The Color Purple. And it's sad that she never translated. That's another one. I don't think people went and saw the movie. And it's just Warner Brothers they just dropped the ball with this whole awards campaign for The Color Purple. And I know why they did. It's because they were waiting for the strike to end. And they wanted to put this thing into gear after the strike ended. And I just think it was too late.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for lead actress?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also frustrated that Fantasia didn't get in there. It would have been nice if Neon had got an origin out. Think about other bad campaigns. If Neon had got an origin out, Anjanou Ellis Taylor should have gotten more of a potential shot to get a nomination for actress with the work that she does in Origin. But Fantasia missing, it does hurt. It's been really annoying. But hey, she is going to get her moment at BAFTA at the least. The jury made sure that she got nominated there. But I mean, it's just practically the Oscar 5. It's kind of basically what we saw with supporting actor.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones. I think once again, it's just. I mean, and once again, I think it comes into what I said earlier about Daniel Brooks. I think it's just one of those ones. Like, I think there's a lot of people that were just very ho hum about the original Color Purple. Was like, why would I want to go see this musical about a movie I wasn't really that high on in the first place? And it's only literally been out here for a week, so I just haven't had a chance to see it. I might go try and see it at some stage this week, but moving on, we've got one category left, and that's Best Picture. Just outside the bubble, I'm not gonna. We had Past Lives, Maestro, The Zone of Interest, All of Us Strangers, all just on the outside. But nominated for Best Picture, we have got Poor Things, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, The Holdovers, Godzilla Minus One, The Iron Claw, Air, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and American Fiction. Lewis, what are your thoughts about the lineup for Best Picture?
This is an even more accessible Best Picture lineup than we got from the Oscars. Not that this is the lineup we got from the Oscars. We got a good lineup from the Oscars, but this is a more accessible one. I like this lineup a lot. I like that. That's cool to see Air sneak in here. Even it's not in my personal top 10, but it's just outside of it. Cool to see Guardians sneak in here. Cool to see Spider-Man get in here so an animated feature gets some love here. Iron Claw, Dan continues to be on the island when it comes to that movie, it seems. but Godzilla -1. Thank God. Thank you to the community for going ahead and voting for this into Best Picture. Even though I gotta believe Oppenheimer is gonna be the favorite. But yeah, I like this lineup. I mean, frustrating to see Maestro not get in here, but talking about another island, that's one island I am with Dan on because I think that movie's great, and it's fortunate that it wasn't able to get in here. But I can't complain too much about the lineup that we got here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the line because a lot of these were in my personal top 10 of the year personally. But and it's just one of those ones like, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, well, Oppenheimer gone in here, it wasn't the top choice on everyone's ballot. So once we get to voting, it's going to be because I know there's a lot of people that would probably vote Godzilla -1 over Oppenheimer. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the votes lie and what happens when I open up the voting. Which I will be opening up the voting. Probably not tonight. I'll probably open up tomorrow just because I don't have time to get the form filled out made in time to get it there tonight. But it will be out tomorrow. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the lineup for Best Picture?
Yeah, I would have probably kicked out -1. I would have probably kicked out Spider-Man. I would have had Maestro and Zone of Interest in here. Because I think those are two of the lesser movies of the year. I mean, more.
Wait. Would you kick out? You will kick out Iron. I thought you didn't like Iron Claw.
Yeah,
Iron kick that out first.
Yeah, Iron Claw, Maestro, and -1. I mean, Iron Claw, Spider-Man, and -1. And I put Maestro, Zone of Interest, and something else in here over those three. I mean, they're some of the better films of the year, but I don't think they're in the top 10 films of the year. So that's just my own. I definitely would have Zone of Interest and Maestro in here. I don't know what else was on the bubble. I forget what else was on the bubble, Malcolm. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, and I know maybe this is a controversial, but I think the PGA 10, which the Oscars nominated, are the 10 best films of the year. I mean, I'll be honest. I think those are the 10 best films of the year. I have a few other films in my top 10, my personal top 10s, but when you look at the overall, I think they really were the 10 best films of the year.
I think it's a controversial take. I think a lot of people seem to believe that. Now, I would quibble a little bit because I do think that the lineup could be a little better. Not like it's a bad lineup.
You're not going to get animated films. You're not going to get documentaries. And if I would have had my druthers, I would have had a documentary in the Oscar 10. But they're not going to get it in there. When you have an animated category, you have a documentary category. Now, foreign films, we've seen that happen, and that's because the voting body has expanded, and they've gotten some people to where the foreign faction of the Oscar voting body has really come through. We've seen it with Coda. We've seen it with Paris. We've seen it with Cold War. We've seen it with Triangle of Sadness. Now, this year, we got 2, Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall, and some people would argue Past Life, so possibly three movies that have foreign language spoken. So that's crazy how that foreign faction of the foreign language of the Oscars is really showing up this year. But I liked in years to come, I would definitely like to see an animated film get in. I'd like to see a documentary get in and stop saying, "Oh, they got their own category," bunch of crap. Because the fact that Beyond Utopia can't even get in Best Documentary, it just shows you that there's some problems with the documentary branch, because that's clearly one of the best documentaries of the year.
Well, I can see an animated film getting in the near future, but documentary's a bit of a stretch. I feel like Pinocchio last year probably had the best chance in a while of an animated film getting in, because I think that translated more to more centrist Academy voters than most animated films do.
That's
I mean,
just
I do wonder if Soul maybe could have snuck in if they had done a hard 10 that year.
yeah.
But
Good point.
documentary wise, I think that's going to be really tough because there's going to be folks who just don't see that as a movie.
Yeah.
On top
Well,
of the fact that it
yeah.
has another thing. I think
Well,
the
I
only
mean,
time we've ever
Superman,
come.
the Christopher Reeve story this year, if you don't get that freaking documentary branch that's a bunch of wackos, that is the type of movie that could really translate to
Wackos.
Best Picture. Don't you think? Don't you think, Lewis?
I mean, it's the like the only time that I could argue, looking back in history, that a documentary came close to getting nominated for Best Picture was maybe
Hoop
Hoop Dreams, but that wasn't a year of 10. Now, had there been a year of 10, I think would have had a good shot.
They didn't even get in the documentary because the documentary branch was a bunch of wackos back then too. Their system was even more antiquated back then. They put lights on. You put the light on if you like it. If you put the red light on, it's like, what the heck kind of freaking system is this? But I don't want to go off on a whole thing. I know you got places.
Well, no, well, of course, about says, I think if the documentary is really good, I think it could break that 10. Because I would argue that maybe 20 Days of Maripol probably had a good shot at to crack that 10 if anything.
Yeah,
and
that probably had a lot of love. Yeah, you're right.
Because I mean, because there was in both international and documentary this year.
Yeah,
so,
good point.
So a lot of people do. So a lot of people do love it. And then whatever year it was when Flea was out, I think that also probably had.
That was
Yeah.
in 3 categories. Second and 3 categories. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, so I think that had to have had a good shot. That must be really loved. So that probably had a good shot to maybe get in. And because I think it's one of those ones. I do think if a anime movie is really good, I do see it getting into Best Picture. Like Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, if it's really good, I could see that getting into Best Picture. If it's a really good conclusion to that arc. So I think it's just one of those ones like as the Academy changes and add more people, then who knows what things. But moving on to the last bit, because I did keep the stats as well. So the most nominated movies that they've gone with the Winner Awards, Barbie is number 1 with 16 nominations. Granted, 3 of those is for one category, but it's still got 16 nominations. Oppenheimer was second on 15. Then you had Poor Things on 14, Holdovers with 12, and Killers of the Flower Moon with 9. Godzilla -1 and Guardians Volume 3 both had 6 apiece. And a lot of the other ones had either 3, 4, or 5. So, but that is the nominations of the Golden Film Awards. As I said earlier, the voting will open tomorrow. But yeah,
Malcolm, I have an idea too. Maybe put a thing at the bottom of the voting. Come up with a category that you want us to possibly consider for the Gone with the Wind Awards next year, something like that.
well,
Just for the fun of it. You never know. They might come up with something decent where you say, "Yeah, that's not a bad category."
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I want to add more categories personally.
All right, that's fine.
Just because I think 25 is a good number.
Oh, you got 25 categories? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what I am thinking is just because of the amount of confusion we always have with the screenplay categories, I'm thinking about merging it into one and maybe having like one category of 10 nominations for screenplay. But that I haven't quite decided if I'll do that yet or not. But moving on, we won't be here next week just because there is actually only 2 things to talk about. So we're going to move those into the week after, which is bound to be a big group because we're going to have a bunch of winners and stuff. And I think BAFTA's around that time too. And yeah, but Dan, where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook X, Blue Sky, Threads, or some variation of DP, Skipbound, or also Letterboxd. Also, I'm a film critic in Orlando, Florida, and I write for FromTheFourthRow.com. Also, I'll be appearing on keep an eye out for Picture This 1943. I'll be in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. I'll be doing all 10 1943 movies. Wow, what an interesting batch of movies for 19. And I noticed on Letterboxd, Lewis has seen some of these. Also, I'll be on. It's going to be 3 episodes next week, but I'll be on the middle episode for one of these tournaments that we're doing, Malcolm. I don't know if you're doing that one next week or not.
It will be the 200 celebration.
200. Yeah, I'll be on the middle episode of that probably in the Hero Network. That's Jordan's channel. Also, yeah, I got a lot. I got some screenings next week. Lewis, did you get that screening from Madam Web?
Yes, I mean, I'm not going to be able to make it because apparently they're doing it in the middle of the day, which makes me wonder, like,
I love that.
But do you realize that that's coming out?
They're
doing a screening before, and then that night, I guess there's probably going to be previews. That tells me that the studio doesn't have the greatest confidence in that movie if they're trying to make it that late in our reviews.
No, I know that. I was shocked that we got that, but you say your plugs with us.
I mean, I'll just keep it simple. MendesMovieReport.com. I try to get a weekly movie review written there. I got my links to everything over there. I do my Oscar projections, even though for now I'm basically, it's right now everything. It's a lull in award season before you know it's going to heat up. Next weekend we got DG. This upcoming weekend we got DGA. The weekend after that we got BAFTA. Before you know it, we got SAG PGA weekend staring down our faces. So it's going to get interesting. But I'm trying to finish and lock in my personal ratings for films from year in films. I just came out with a rundown of my favorite films from the 2020 movie season, which for me personally wasn't a strong year for film, but there was some good stuff that came out of it. If you want to find me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter /X, or Letterboxd, just find me at Mendes Movie RPT.
And you can find me on Tape Productions hosting Rankin usually every Sunday. Next week, just because the Super Bowl is on Sunday, and I didn't and plus some of the people that I kind of wanted on for the episode aren't usually available at that time anyway. Rank will be next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, as we're talking classics, classic comedies, which should be interesting because it's one of those genres I've always wanted to watch more of the classic stuff in, because I haven't seen a lot of them, but good to finally get a chance to watch some. And you can also find Gone with the Wind coming back in a couple of weeks. And you can also find me on the Movie Hero Network popping up from time to time. I think I'll be on one of those parts next week as well. I'm actually going to be on it to that in a few minutes, talking about family movies. But until then, that is the end of Gone with the Wind for this week. We shall see you next time.
Excuse me.